Welcome to Always Real Talk. I'm Kwame Brown. We all know that this is the holiday season, which means it's the end of the year. And what happens at the end of the year? The good people are trying to get themselves ready for tax season, right? And those that are trying to get themselves ready for tax season this year, something different is taking place. Many of them have received PPPs. That's right. You remember the money that the government came out with to make sure that businesses continue to stay in business was the PPP. And I have in the studio with me once again my good friend Beverly Winstead. She is one of the hottest and best well-known tax attorneys in the DMV and throughout the country. She understands the PPP, but more importantly, she stays on top of her clients to make sure that they get it right. Beverly, welcome to Always Real Talk.
Thank you for having me, Kwame.
Hey, it's always good to see you. Especially hope all is well with your family during these trying times with the coronavirus. But I want to jump right into it. You and I know it's the PPP was the hottest thing moving months ago. Everyone was trying to apply for it. People were getting this money, and many people received the money thinking that it was going to be forgiven if they followed the guidelines. Now we're 6, 7, 8 months down the road, and some people had all the intentions of following the guidelines, but do they have all their documentations and ready? What are you hearing out there, and what do people need to really start to think about to make sure that they have everything in place needed to get the loan forgiveness for the PPP?
Yeah. So I'm hearing a lot. I've been on several calls with the SBA, trying to see where they are in terms of the forgiveness process, because that's what everybody wants to know. As a tax professional, we want to know whether or not our clients are going to be able to deduct some of their expenses. The only way they're going to be able to deduct some of the expenses right now is if it actually is a loan and not a grant. But the whole purpose of people applying for the PPP is because they really want it to be a grant. So we're still waiting for clarification on that process. But in terms of, I think what people need to know right now is they definitely need to get their paperwork in order, because banks soon will, most banks, there are some banks that's already released the forgiveness application, but a lot of banks haven't, because again, we're still waiting for clarification from Congress and from the SBA on certain issues.
Okay, and there's some out there that are under the impression that, and I think the government will at some point, they have to go for another round of stimulus. People are talking about it. The election is pretty much over. Well, it is over, right? The election's over. January there'll be a new president, and they're talking about Congress trying to do something before the end of the year to send some relief to businesses, and it may be something around what was out there before. Now, if there are people that are looking to probably apply again, right, and they've already applied in the past, what are the top three things that you think, from a paperwork perspective, that allows people to get forgiveness for the first PPP?
So certainly from the first PPP, what we were advising clients is you need to have a separate bank account. When the SBA or the lender actually released the funds to you, you wanted to have it in a separate business bank account. And this is to have a clean audit trail. So it kind of really depends on the structure of your business, what paperwork you're going to send over to your lender for forgiveness. And so just generally, you want payroll records for the period that you actually use PPP. If you use PPP funds to pay for rent, you want cancel checks or proof that you actually paid the rent. You want proof that you also paid mortgage interest, because mortgage interest for the business was deductible. And then, of course, if you paid utilities, then you want to also gather up utility bills and then proof of payment for the utilities.
Okay, okay. And then when you start to look at, that was one of the questions. Then we had callers call in and text us in, and they was asking about the forms. Like, what are some of the forms that people should be gathering or downloading or dealing with as it relates to applying for this loan forgiveness for the PPPs?
All right, so this actually has changed a couple of times, the forms, and that's because the SBA, they're continually trying to figure out ways to streamline the forgiveness process. So right now, as it stands, there are about 3 different forms that you can use and to apply for forgiveness, and it really depends on the amount of the loan that you received and how you're structured as a business. For instance, I'll just give you the major, well, the numbers. So the 3508, the 3508S, and then you have the 3508EZ. Those are the 3 forms
Okay.
to apply for forgiveness. Yeah.
Got you. Got you. And then, what kind of forgiveness decisions will be made? So for an example, someone says, I received $10,000. I submitted all of my documentation, but maybe I don't have documentation for all of it. Are there partial decisions, half decisions, or just one decision, yay or nay?
So what we're learning is that there are basically 4 different kinds of decisions that the SBA are going to make: approved in full, approved in part, denied in full, and denied in part. But before I even get to that, I really want to go back and revisit the forms, because I want people to understand the types of forms that they need to think about or use. And again, it depends on the type of business that you have and the loan that you amount. So businesses who received loans of $50,000 or more, they're going to do the long form, and that's the 3508. Again, 50,000 or more, doesn't matter. If you got PPP funds of 50,000 or more, you're going to use the 3508. It doesn't matter whether you're an S corp, C corp, sole proprietor, LLC. That's the form you're going to use. The next form that the SBA is putting out is a 3508S, and that's for businesses who receive loans of $50,000 or less. $50,000 or less, and you want to think about that. And then you have the 3508EZ, and that's really for sole proprietors. So if you're a sole proprietor or a single member LLC and you have no employees, that's the form that you should be thinking about using. And that's really the streamlined, the easiest form to use. Very simple. Now, when you do apply, you're going to apply through your lender, and I can imagine that the lender may just gather information and then put it, because normally what you're going to do is you're going to go into the lender's portal and you're going to put in information, and then you're going to sign the form. You should sign the form under penalties of perjury. So you want to make sure that all the information is correct on the forms, the application forms, and that you also gather all your documentation and you submit it to the lender.
Okay, got it. And that's very, very useful information. We try to put some of those forms up on the screen for folks so they can get a sense of what they are. Rewind it back, listen very carefully. Depending on where you fall, depends on what form you use, right? So I want you to go back, rewind it, play it again, listen, make sure you got the correct information. Now, I look in here just to make sure. I know that the PPP loan forgivenesses, you can, if you used all of this money prior to February 15, 2020, payroll cost was one. What are the others that qualify if you use the money before the certain time period?
Rent, mortgage interest, payroll, and utilities.
And utilities.
Those are the 4.
So
yeah,
if you paid your utility bill, make sure you go get it, because that qualifies. Mortgage interest payments, call your bank, call your mortgage company, get it all together, because that's the documentation that you're going to need to actually submit it, along with, like you said, get your council checks, whatever form of payment that you use that you can verify, collect all that information. Now, when I want to start to talk about...
Can I clarify something that I said about 5 minutes ago? And this goes back to the possible decisions you can get with the loan forgiveness. I think I said denied in full and denied in part. What I meant to say is denied. That means denied in full. But there's also denied without prejudice. And that's generally what the SBA will do if there's some documentation that you are missing or something that they don't understand. And so they're giving you an opportunity to really resubmit.
Okay. And that's what we got. And I got a couple of them here. I got them here. Approved in full, approved in part, right? And then denied. And the last one you just explained was the denied without prejudice. Is that
Right.
correct? And that's the one that they can
Yes.
deny them, but they ask for more information. You give them more information, then they can make a decision. So if you get that one, we know
Yes.
when people know what it is, because some people might get that denial, prejudice, and just throw it away and think they were denied. Don't do that. Rewind the tape, listen again, fill it out, give them all the documentation they needed, and get that information back to them. Now, the last question that people are asking us is about grants. Some people received what they considered, I think it was called the EIDL grant. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
I'm not
I
sure.
call it idle, but everything else is like every time I say idle, people are like, what are you talking about? That's just how I say it. But this is the economic injury disaster loan. What is it? EIDL?
EIDL. You're the expert, but
Yeah,
I knew, I thought it was EIDL, but it's the EID grant. We know, people know it's the grant. If you got the grant, you know what the grant is. The question is,
hmm
if you got that grant, you don't have to pay it back. Is that correct?
Well, actually, you do have to pay it back.
Okay.
So well, let me just say this, it depends. So what we see now is that when you got the advancement, then it was a grant. But if you got PPP funds on top of the idle
Gotcha.
grant, then you have to back the grant back out, and the grant is now the loan portion. So let's say you originally received an idle advance of $2,000, then but you also got PPP of $10,000. Then only $10,000 is eligible now for forgiveness because the $2,000 comes back in and is the part you have to repay.
Gotcha, gotcha. And let me just say, uh, that's why it's so important. And it's November, right? And some people would think November's still late trying to get all this stuff together, but it was so important because we received so many requests from people asking, hey, they really enjoyed the couple shows that you did. They said, hey, when are you gonna do another show? Because she was so informative. And that's why we wanted to have you back on to really talk about what's needed. This is November, then we know December, we already know time frame. People know about the IRS, they know about taxes. Got to get yourself together, right? And these are some of the
Yeah.
things you can do. But this is just a show that's 10 minutes long. That's why I want you to reach out to a professional. And we have one of the best that's in the building with us today, and that's Beverly Winstead at Law Offices of Beverly Winstead LLC. Reach out to Beverly. Beverly, what's your number they can reach you, Beverly?
I can be reached at 301-306-1234.
And that's easy. 301.
Easy. Easy. 301-306-1234.
That's it. 306-1234. I mean, I can't get no easier than that. 301 306
One,
1234.
three, four.
34. 1, 2, 3.
It's
You got it.
easy
You
as
know what I'm
one,
talking
two,
about, right?
three, four. Yeah.
You know
Well,
what
let
I'm
me
talking
just say this. I really enjoy being on your show. I really enjoy, your interview style. And I
about.
enjoy watching the show.
Oh,
I know you do it Monday, Tuesday nights. So, and I think on Thursdays too, it's just a remarkable service what you're doing for the community, allowing a voice to get this information out to people who really need it. So, thank you so much.
no, no. Hey, thank you for the kind words. We have so many viewers, so many listeners. I mean, once again, if you're watching on Facebook, hit the button share. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it on your page. Many of you are listening on our podcast. Of course, you can go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube. We're trying to crank that back up. Go to YouTube and hit the word subscribe. That's right. Go to YouTube and hit the word subscribe. But once again, Beverly, thank you for coming in. You are always dropping gems. She dropped a lot of gems today, but more importantly, give her a call. 301 306 1234. Don't wait until February to call the number. Call the number today. Call the number tomorrow. Call the number and get started early. That's the number one thing that we want to stress to our listeners. Once again, I'm Kwame Brown, and if it's always real talk, you know it's going to be real. Do you have a nonprofit out there that's doing some phenomenal work that you think that we should highlight? All you have to do is email us their information and we'll reach out. We want to support all of the nonprofits that are out there doing phenomenal work to our community. Hey, it's the Always Real Talk nonprofit sector. All you have to do is go to info@alwaysrealtalk.com, send out the information and why you think that they are doing such great work. Let us know, and we will let our viewers know. If it's Always Real Talk, you know it's going to be real.